Everybody, we'll call this meeting to order. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled to same as provided by law of a schedule including the date and time of this meeting. Roll call, please.
Councilwoman Houck.
Here.
Councilwoman Newton.
Here.
Councilman Pucciarelli has not yet arrived. Councilman Seaton.
Here.
And Mayor Aronson.
Here. Please join us as we salute the flag. Please join us now in a moment of silence as we honor the American men and women serving in the armed forces, as well as those serving as first responders.
Councilman Pucciarelli has arrived at the meeting.
Great, thank you very much. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. We have public comments. We have a special public meeting. Not too big of an agenda, but we'll see. Famous last words.
Manager's report is long. Manager's report is long.
Manager's report is long. Anyway, we'll start with public comments. Anyone would like to come up to the podium? 5 minutes a person. Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. Gary Cirillo, 260 South Pleasant. Just to follow up on what we spoke about last week on the signs real quickly. I was able to get a hold of what was really written, which is that signs may be planted in the right-of-way, including the planting strip and the curb between the sidewalk, anywhere in the town. And for some reason, this is where I have the issue, including the planters in the CBD. So it was singled out. It said, however, they may not be placed on any village property. So to me, that's a conflict, and I don't understand, number one, why the planters were singled out to be placed in doesn't make much sense to me. But more importantly, I believe that even though this is kind of a lame duck council in some ways, this is, comes from the clerk. So from what I understand, who's neutral or however it's posted. To me, the simplest solution would be that you eliminate all village property. And what that means is you eliminate downtown and you eliminate the central business district, the planters, but you also eliminate the first 15 feet between the curb, from your curb into your property, which the town owns, everyone's property, 15 feet in or 25 feet in from the curb. That would create a very simple, uniform practice that everyone can follow. No ambiguity at all. It's just very simple. So that when people come into town, you don't see the competing signs all over the curbs everywhere. It would be so simple to follow. It's got to be 15 or 25 feet in from the curb, and that's it. It's not on village property. You can put 1, you can put 10, whatever it is, and that's it. And then you said how many days after the election you'd like to see the signs come down, or whatever it is. And to me, now, perhaps there's something constitutional that doesn't allow that, but in order so that this doesn't become something that goes on for months and months and just constant comment on it, that to me seems like the simplest way. If we own that property, you can't put a sign on it. And if you own the property, you have the freedom of speech to say whatever you want. That seems to me the simplest way to do it, because the planting strips, the town is, this is a very hot contested election right now. I've never seen so many signs, I don't think. With 6 candidates and everyone has their 3 and 3, it's amazing. But it seems, unless there's a reason why not, to me that's the simplest way to approach this. If we own it, you can't do it. And I don't understand why the planters were singled out. One candidate still has them downtown. And to be honest with you, that's his right. It's totally within the law. So I don't have any problem with him. I don't appreciate it, but he has every right to do it because that's what it says right now. So I think going forward, if we are going to change it, that my only recommendation would be to make it very simple and very to the point. If we own it, you can't touch it, and if it's yours, this way it's your responsibility to take it down. Because I can theoretically, if I wanted to, I can go put signs on someone's right of way because it's village property. So it seems like a simple thing, but maybe it's not. So going forward, that's my suggestion. Again, next Saturday, 9 a.m., Project Pride. Come down for an hour or two, and we're usually done by 11 a.m., and we'll have all the planters done if it ever warms up. Thank you very much.
Great, thanks, Gary, appreciate it. Any other comments? Good evening.
Good evening. Cynthia Hallaby, 374 Evergreen Place. I'm with the Conservancy.
Move the microphone down.
Right.
Thanks.
Lowered. And I'd like to thank Mr. Seedon for his complimentary comments about the Daffodil and Earth Day celebration. We were delighted. It was such a beautiful day. And we only had one scofflaw, and that was a runaway goat from the petting zoo, but fortunately, not many people saw it. So much encouraged by our success, we are working with REAC again, and we have chosen Sunday, April 16th, 2017, to repeat that wonderful day and hope the weather cooperates. And we will also hold our 4th annual Daffy Dog Parade, so get your dogs ready. The Conservancy has now moved into our milkweed planting phase, and we are setting up several pollinator habitats in the community. Lara Haralick is working very hard over at Twinney Pond Park, and she has got lots of children planting milkweed seed. We're also going to have a big day there over, May 22nd, where we're going to be planting several $100s worth of native plants. So in June, we're going to have a ribbon cutting, and we will invite you all to attend. Lara is also working with Health Barn to have another pollinator habitat over there. It's an ideal location. Habernickel is ideal, and there are all these wonderful children who can nurture the plants and take care of the land. And of course, all of this is under the auspices of Parks and Recreation Department. This Saturday, we're holding a plant sale at Van Nest from 10 to 3 on the eve of Mother's Day. So we hope we'll get great support. This is a big fundraising effort for us. And then one last item, as you walk or drive along North Broad, look at the little dogwood trees. They are in full bloom. There are 13 of them. They're very small, but they've survived the last 2 winters and summers. And they are native, and they are called Cherokee Princess. So please take a look. Thank you for your support and encouragement, and we're delighted to be improving the parks and providing children with educational opportunities. Thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia.
Can I ask you a quick question? In the event of rain, is the plant sale canceled?
No.
It's rain or shine?
Rain or shine.
And it is at Van Nest this year?
It is at Van Nest.
Which is different, because it's been
Yes.
previous years, some years at the train station, so I wanted to clarify that.
Thank you. And they're ideal little Mother's Day gifts, so hoping that shoppers will
Thank you.
pick up a few things. Thank you.
These are yours? Do you have yours?
Good evening.
Jim Griffith, 159 South Irving Street. A couple of comments about signs. As you all know, I've been living in the area for about 54 years, and the seeds of democracy are planted many different ways, in many different locations. But Ridgewood has a persistent blooming of a democratic process, and that's the signs. You know, you can expect them, you'll see them, they're different colors, different shapes, and they're gonna pop up. And when you stop and think about it, especially when you look at all the different things on TV, I'm thrilled that it's such an inexpensive expression of our rights. Inexpensive, and is mostly shared by the individuals who put them up. So I'm thrilled by it. It doesn't offend me in any way. Last meeting, I observed you from at home, so I hope I got things right. But I heard a couple complaints about the signs uptown, and that they were in the flower pots, and they thought it was awful to challenge the flowers in the flowers pots by putting in there. So I double-checked by taking a ride through town, and there's not one flower that's been planted yet in one of those pots. And I went back to my own gardening days, which ended a long time ago, and started with the community gardens that you have out back here. And I realized that this is the East Coast, and I think it's Region 6, And it's May 15th. If you plant before May 15th, you should have your head examined. And it's in the books, it's published, and it's in the Farmer's Almanac. So when I see signs uptown, they're not crushing out any flowers. There's no flowers in it. And if there's no rules about a sign there, is it undisciplined? Yeah, it's undisciplined. So a lot about democracy is, all right? And if we go back and how it used to be, you go back to the Federalist Papers, and that was an expression, and they came out the last minute and published here and stuck up there. And so things are being continued. That's my only comment. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? All right, we will move to, going to go to our special work session. Motion to, suspend our work session and convene our special public meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Hauk,
Yes.
Newton,
Yes.
Pucciarelli, Seaton,
Yes.
and Aronson.
Yes, I don't know if I have the, do you have the
Here, you
special
want
public
this?
meeting agenda?
Sure.
Here, Paul.
Thank you.
I'm going to recuse myself from this
Okay.
portion of the meeting.
Sure, sounds good. Adequate notice of this meeting has been provided by posting on the bulletin board in Village Hall, by mail to the Ridgewood News, the Record, and by submission to all persons entitled to same as provided by law of a schedule including the date and time of this meeting.
Roll call. Councilwoman Hauk,
Here.
Councilwoman Newton,
Here.
Councilman Pucciarelli has recused himself, Councilman Seaton,
Here.
and Mayor Aronson.
Here. Now, before we go into this, I understand now there's two sets of minutes. I haven't seen them, actually. Are they in this pile?
No, did you?
I sent the second set via email.
Just an
earlier
email.
today, yeah. The first set was given to you prior to the last meeting.
So this is the first
I
one?
think I printed this tonight from Heather's email. But in your email, it was highlighted where
Correct.
the additions were, and it didn't come out.
Oh, okay.
So the issue here is there was an Oprah request for meeting minutes from one of our closed sessions. And it was on our agenda last week to adopt them. There was a request from Councilwoman Newton to hold it for a week. I understand there's been, I guess, some conversation between you and the village clerk. And so now there's a revised set of minutes. Can you, maybe Heather, walk us through
Sure.
what changed from last week, I guess? I don't know if I have it. Let me pull it up.
Okay. Let me give you a minute to bring it up.
Okay, thank you.
Is he ready?
It's slow.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Let me know.
It's loading.
Okay, mine's up.
Oh, wow. You've got Wi-Fi.
Okay?
I think she's
Are
still
you ready
waiting.
yet?
That's
Not
okay.
yet?
That's
Are you-
all right.
Are you sure?
Do you guys have it?
Okay. So on page 3, the sentence that was added, it said, in the second paragraph, or the first paragraph on that page, actually, it says, Councilwoman Newton indicated that the information about the Valley Hospital hearings can be found through transcripts and materials which have been readily available online for quite some time. That's the addition in the new set. On page 4, the fourth paragraph down, the last sentence has been added. Councilman Seaton said that due to the short notice, he may have childcare issues and may not be able to be the representative. And then on the final page, the paragraph just before adjournment, it says the village council members agreed that Councilwoman Hauk and Councilwoman Newton should serve. There was a word unanimously in there, it's now removed, but it says the council members agreed. So those are the 3 changes to the sets of minutes.
So what was the purpose of the change? I mean, this seems a little extraordinary, making changes to minutes. And I know this is different than when we do it here
Correct.
because you can go
There's a
back to the
tape,
recording
right,
of it.
correct,
And-
correct.
this is
Councilwoman Newton indicated to me that the fact that she had mentioned that it was on the website and had been online, that she had mentioned that. And, I didn't feel that it changed the meaning or the, anything to do with the minutes really, except just a statement of fact, because we all know that that information has been on the website.
Was that in your notes, though?
It wasn't specifically in my notes, no. The second one with Councilman Seaton, I checked with Councilman Seaton, and he said, yes, that he did say that. And specifically, I didn't have it in my notes, but I'm not going to, I believe he said that. So, and again, it really doesn't change anything except to say that he felt he might not be available to serve as a representative. And then the last one, unanimously apparently was a hot button word or something, because I said, well, all of the council in the end agreed because none disagreed. And so Councilwoman Newton said she would be more comfortable to just say agreed. So it just has changed to council members agreed.
But it was unanimous.
Well, no one
I-
disagreed.
I think that the word unanimous in my mind conveyed it was a vote, and I think that I felt more comfortable just saying that collectively we agreed, and I just think that unanimously it had a connotation of a vote, and there was no such vote because I don't think
No, you can't vote.
we can't vote in closed session.
Correct.
And so I was very concerned that that indicated that there was a potential that there was a vote, and so I just was concerned. And the other change to the materials being available on the website, just reading the minutes, and I understood from Heather, of course, that they're not verbatim minutes, but reading it and out of context of the larger conversation, and actually there was more I would have added because, in fact, I think my recollection was that you, in fact, recommended Councilwoman Houck and myself to be the mediators, and that was another piece that I thought, just in context, I thought that those were important components because if you were making that recommendation, you had a reason to do so. So I thought it was really important to have just a better reflection in context what the comments were. And
How does that add, I'm sorry, you lost me there. Right, so and it says it in the original minutes that Heather had, that I recommended it to the two of
Right.
you.
Correct.
So how does your statement put that in context? I'm confused. I'm trying to.
I'm just saying, in other words, if I were to put that in the context of the whole conversation, you actually justified your reasoning behind it, but I don't think that's reflected in the minutes. So I thought that it was an important piece, but I didn't add that in, because I didn't want to bother Heather too much, so I just picked a couple of bullet points to, in my mind, to more adequately reflect. And as I said, I felt that unanimously had suggested that there was a vote, and I was remarkably uncomfortable because legally we couldn't do that in closed session.
But it doesn't say vote, it says agreed, which is something we do all the time in closed session.
Unanimously,
Sometimes we disagree, but sometimes we agree.
most times we agree, I think. Anyway, I just felt that it unanimously agreed, to me, in my mind, sounded like a vote, and I was just uncomfortable with it. That's all.
Okay.
And quite honestly, I'll speak a little bit more candidly here. We've never been in a situation, well, maybe perhaps you have been in the past. You've been here for 8 years now. For my 2 years, we've never had a situation where closed session meetings, to my knowledge, those minutes were something that were opened, and so I have to say, I given that we were in this situation, I felt I really would like to have the record be reflective of more thoroughly. That's all.
Sure.
And I'm comfortable with it. Yeah.
Any other thoughts, Mike?
I do have some questions because, like Susan, Councilwoman Knudsen, this is the first time anybody's ever opened our closed session minutes, which is absolutely fine, but it's kind of, it puts a new spin on approving minutes, because when we every month approve minutes from open session meetings, we just go down the line and we vote on it, and then the majority carries and the minutes are approved. So every once in a while I'll abstain because I'm not sure I remember, or I take a little bit of an issue with it, or I'll vote against it, but still it's usually 4-1 or something like that in favor of carrying the minutes. I don't remember ever that minutes were asked to be amended, even in open session it's just a vote. We just vote on whether or not. And the only reason why, part two of my question, why I'm nervous about amending the minutes and getting the minutes just right on this is because it's a litigation issue. So my question to Matt Rogers is this something that at any given date in the future, somebody looks back and says, why was this person appointed to the mediation? Well, it looks here like it was unanimous or it was mutually all approved. I guess that doesn't matter. That's just a question of semantics. But the precedent setting of, I guess it's no big deal if we amend minutes. It's just I've never done it before.
Yeah. No, in fact, the normal process is that you're sent the minutes ahead of time before the meeting so you can read them, just in case you have any questions about the accuracy of the minutes. So that way, if there is something, then you can express it and hopefully amend it if it's not accurate. So that's what normally happens.
But just in terms of what normal happens, we're usually talking about open public
Yeah.
meetings. But we can always match that up with the videotape.
You could do that if you
We
wanted
don't have
to.
that luxury here.
Yeah.
No, you don't. And what's interesting is that rarely does a municipality keep a tape in their closed session. They don't do it, and for reasons that it is closed as executive session, and the time if they are sought after, if somebody files an Oprah request and does something like that, then there's a lot you have to go through in order to find out the accuracy of it. Since I've been here, and I think even long before that, they've never kept a tape at any of the closed sessions. So you have to deal with, I mean, we've been for a long time dealing with Heather's notes, and then, with any of those notes or the note-taking, there's, sometimes multiple people talking at the same time. So it's the accuracy of it sometimes needs to be reviewed and looked at, and I think that's really kind of what happened.
And two things I'll say is that when I spoke to Heather about this, she indicated, when we get our minutes from these meetings, it's a transcript essentially from a recording. But when closed session minutes, they're just she's just jotting, not even in full sentences, and so it's the detail information is not really there. So as a matter of fact, my understanding is that there were sentences that were reconstructed based on those notes. And the other thing I have to say is that when I was reading the notes, and I was even a little bit upset about it because, this, just for everyone's kind of information, this was about a process of who would be selected to participate in the mediation during the Valley mediation sessions. And prior to that, there were discussions about our confidential strategy, but all of that's redacted. But when I read, it's all redacted, but then the one line where I say, this could be a win-win, but it's out of context because it's so redacted that nobody understands my statement, this could be a win-win for everybody. And I really, at the time, was so optimistic, obviously, and we all were and felt that way. So I just felt that it brought it more into context. That's all. That's it.
So my thinking is, we're in our uncharted waters here because we haven't had this, and maybe we need to establish more of a process going forward. I don't know. Yeah. But I'm uncomfortable. I mean, I'm uncomfortable changing. I mean, we had the village clerk's, interpretation of our own notes last week. I'm more comfortable staying with that, particularly as being reminded we are in the middle of litigation. We have a court date next Tuesday. Monday, sorry. I feel much more comfortable. These are Heather's notes, whether...
What it should be is really your recollection of the accuracy of the statements, and you vote on whether or not you believe it was an accurate recitation.
So if we don't feel that her recollection is accurate, we can vote against it or abstain. Bless you.
You can vote yes to adopt those minutes or no, not to adopt them.
Right, or abstain.
Or abstain, whatever you like.
If there's a lack of clarity and you're... Yeah. That's my preferred approach.
Well, just in more full disclosure, one of the edits, the one about whether the semantics of it, was it unanimous or was it we all agreed, that one I have no issue with. but the other two ones, I don't recall at all. I find them to be additions which don't resonate with me. I mean, Mike may have said what he said, but I don't remember it, and Susan may have said what she said, but I don't remember it. So I would be in the middle. I would say I'd amend some of the minutes, but not all of the minutes, and then, so we're each going to have a different recollection. I'm just not comfortable with having one person and ask another person if he agrees, and then have the minutes amended, and then have me agree to something that I don't remember. So I guess I would have to vote against the amendments also on the principle of it's a slippery slope. I don't think, unless we just always, anytime somebody says, I'm not sure I agree with this, then we vote on it. And then whether the majority agrees or doesn't agree, it would carry or not carry.
You know, and I just have to say, I'm unsettled with the whole thing, and if not, and I'm not, it's not a criticism of anything, and everyone has the right to say, it's a free country. You're entitled to say whatever it is you want to say and post whatever it is you want on social media. But if it had not been for the fact that there was a post on Facebook that essentially spoke about the discussion in a closed session that then garnered the attention of residents that then said, well, is this the case? And I think that because of that, and I'm just uncomfortable with this whole thing, honestly. I have to admit, I'm uncomfortable with the whole thing. And my understanding of closed session is that it was something that was confidential, that we didn't go out of the room and discuss it. And now we're put in a position, and if I'm going to be in that position, I really do feel that I would like to have my words appropriately reflected in the minutes now. I don't, just because Heather didn't write verbatim, she didn't take verbatim notes, that my specific recollection, we didn't take a vote. So I appreciate that you agree with the removal of the word unanimous, and it's agreed. But the idea that my recollection, which is quite specific, and I have notes to that effect as well, I just find that my comments should be reflected appropriately. I wouldn't be able to support adopting minutes without stating on the record that I, in fact, did indicate that the materials, the transcripts, and other documents were available, readily available for quite some time on the village website, and to, I think that that's important, that my comments, that the, minutes reflect what was said in context.
So, I'm sorry,
And, I have a pretty good memory, so I definitely remember that was one of the big reasons why I couldn't be on the mediation team, because I know I argued a little bit to be on the mediation team, but given the short notice, I had child care issues, and I didn't know if I could juggle that. And as far as the end of the notes, instead of unanimous or agreed, I would say we conceded to have Councilwoman Hauk on the mediation team, but I'm happy to go with the approved minutes as they've been amended, or to approve the minutes as they've been amended.
So what we have here is we have an Oprah request for closed meeting minutes. It went to the village clerk. The village clerk, from her notes, typed up the text, gave it to the lawyer. As I understand, you redacted some things you felt needed to be redacted, and then they were given to us. I'm very uncomfortable sort of editing that and trying to remember what we did and didn't do. If we want to take 2 votes on these, if that's what people want, we can do that. We can vote up, you can vote down. Well, why don't we just move forward and we can look at both? Can we do that, Heather? Can I make a motion?
Well, I would need a motion and a second, and then we'd have to vote. So if you want to start with the first minutes that were given to you last week.
Why don't we do that? Why don't we do that? That way everybody gets to vote on the one that they want.
What I'm thinking is that what's driving this is the Oprah request with regard to the minutes, and it may be that they can get released as unofficial minutes. The vote would make them official minutes.
We can't release them without a resolution, though.
You can't release them without a resolution, so you have to resolve to release them in response to the Oprah request as drafted. So there would be, is that the second vote you were talking about?
There's 2 drafts now.
Oh, there's 2 drafts.
She drafted a second one with
That's
the
right, because I
amendments.
forgot the other one was sent, yes.
Can I just add in that Heather actually did say her notes are just little jots, but she reconstructed the sentences, so...
What I said is I put my notes into full sentences.
Okay, you
That's
put
what
your
I
notes
said.
into full sentences. I'm sorry if I
So why don't maybe if we can do this, if we can agree that there is a set that can be released in response to the Oprah request, that way they are not necessarily adopted, but at least we satisfy our obligation to respond to the Oprah request. And that's the way it goes. I mean, it seems like the consensus is that it was the decision of everybody to establish the mediation team, right? Rather than call it a vote, rather than call it an agreement, rather than call it a concession or anything like that, but it was the consensus that there was a mediation team established.
Yeah, I want to go back.
I'm just trying to figure out a way to deal with the
I think we have
Oprah.
2 drafts here, and we have maybe 2 or 3 interpretations.
Okay, then I'll let you go. I'm just trying to figure out a way.
Because then we're starting to parse words, and then, I can go back and look and try to remember what I just think we've got
Okay.
2 drafts here. Why don't we have, I would move that we take 2 votes.
Okay, so you're going to make a motion to,
Take 2 votes.
Motion?
are you going
To
to do
vote
a
on the
motion
first
to do
one.
the first one?
To vote on the first
Okay,
one,
okay,
and then we'll go to the second.
okay. So
And
do I
it's-
have a second for that?
What happens in the event of a tie? Because obviously that's what's going to happen
They
on
don't
both
pass.
of these.
That's going to be Mr. Rogers' call.
If there is not a majority voting for the adoption of
down,
one of the sets of the minutes, then they do not get adopted.
Right.
So it
what I'm
doesn't
saying.
get.
That's what I'm afraid of.
So then maybe, if you get to that point, then maybe you can take a vote to release one of them. But let's see how the vote goes on the first 2 that the mayor wants to do.
Okay, so this is the original set that was given to you prior to last week's
The
meeting?
original set that you gave. to us.
Correct. So do I have a second for that?
Can I ask another question? I'm sorry. Because this will help me decide which way I'm going to vote. If we amend the minutes this time, is it a precedent setter for all future closed session minutes where we're going to have to argue and debate and cross-vote and about whether we can
You are-
add or subtract to the clerk's notes?
You are permitted to amend the form of minutes if you don't believe them to be accurate, and then the council votes on it. So it's not a precedent because you're able to do it to begin with.
Fine.
So-
Okay, thank you. I just want to know if it was
Yeah.
of historic
You're-
significance.
You're always
right?
allowed to do it. In fact, when you're given the minutes, as I said
Right,
earlier,
we vote.
before the meetings, on
Okay.
the regular open meetings, the minutes from the regular open meetings, you're allowed to review them for accuracy as well.
I thought this was going to be a quick meeting.
Yeah, no kidding, you spoke too soon. Should have knocked wood.
Okay, so do I have a second or no?
To approve the first set? of
Yes,
minutes?
yes. That's the
I'm more
motion.
comfortable with approving the first set of minutes.
So you're going to second?
Yeah, I'll second it, but I know where this is going to go.
Okay. So Hauk,
Yes.
Newton,
No.
Pucciarelli is recused, Seaton,
No.
and Aronson.
Yes.
All right, so do I have a motion then to adopt the amended set of minutes?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay. 1 sec, I'm just writing this down. Okay, Hauk,
No.
Newton,
Yes.
Pucciarelli is recused, Seaton,
Yes.
and Aronson.
No.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Rogers.
Well, they haven't been released, so now I would suggest that we at least try and see if we can get a vote on the release of one of the sets as an unofficial form of minutes. At least that gets us responsive to the, we've gone through the procedures. Certainly, there can't be a claim that we haven't tried to satisfy the Oprah request. So this would be giving them out as a response to the Oprah request, as unofficial.
Put a big draft on it or something? or-
Put unofficial, they're just unofficial minutes, yeah.
So I make a motion to get the second set released as draft minutes.
We're going back again.
I'm just trying to see how we can
Well, all
resolve
right,
it.
I'll second that, but, the amendments were already read, they're part of the public record now, everybody got their say, so does it really matter which set of minutes get released?
It really doesn't.
Everything's pretty much out there right now, so,
Okay, so it's been moved and seconded.
This is for the second set.
Second set, the amended set,
Not to be adopted, but to be released.
Released.
to be released.
Unofficial.
Right, to be released. Hauk,
In the interest of compromise and collegiality, I will concur.
okay. Newton,
Yes.
Petruelli's recused, Seaton,
Yes.
and Aronson.
No.
Okay. All right. So those will be released for the Oprah request as unofficial minutes.
Thank you.
All right.
So
Now we're going
So-
back.
I will make a
I
motion to,
guess I don't have to then read the resolution because we basically did it through the motions and seconds, right?
right.
Okay. So I just need a motion to adjourn
I make a motion to adjourn,
and reconvene.
reconvene.
Okay.
Second?
Okay. Hauk,
Yes.
Newton,
Yes.
Seaton,
Yes.
and Aronson.
Yes.
Okay.
Welcome back. All right. We have presentation, Central Business District, A-frame signs. I'll hand it over to you.
Yeah, so I guess I'm going to call on Ed Sullivan and Philip Davis to come up and talk through A-frame signs in the Central Business District.
Good evening. Welcome.
How are you?
Good.
We wanted to just...
If you could introduce yourselves,
Philip Davis, owner of Kilwins. We wanted to... I'm representing not just Kilwins, but the retailers in the business community. Ed is obviously here as a landlord, also representing the retailers in the business community. We're all very concerned that as of April 1st, an ordinance that's been, from what I'm aware of, that's been long-standing but hasn't been enforced, started to get enforced as of April 1st, and unilaterally, there are no A-frame signs allowed in the community. When
you want to explain what that is, just because some folks...
an A-frame sign is a sign that generally will sit outside your...
It's like a...
it looks like an A. Right, and it's the most effective way a small business communicates to the walking traffic on the street. There are three ways that an A-frame sign communicates to a client. A, it's a promotion, sale, okay? So there's different ways that you can communicate a sale. Sale for my business. It rains all day Saturday and Sunday, like we're seeing now. I will promote some of my product, so this way I don't have to throw it away, and I minimize my downside risk. Another example of a promotion, which has nothing to do with my business, would be somebody like Gypsy Warrior, which is a retailer. They use the A-frame sign to say 30% off skirts, or pants, or dresses, or whatever. That's a promotion. So that's one way that an A-frame sign communicates to clients. Another way an A-frame sign communicates to clients is introductions. Introductions are something that the walk-by traffic isn't aware of. It could be, I introduce something different in my brands. And there's no way that the people walking down the street would have any knowledge of it. Could be something as simple as a new flavor of ice cream. Another example of introductions could be what Raymond's does, which is on my block also. Every day they have they did have an A-frame sign that they promoted what the daily specials were. So everybody started to know that on Wednesdays, I just happened to know because I was a fan of it, fried chicken Wednesdays. And that the only way that a customer would know walking by the streets is through the A-frame, and it would post what the daily specials would be. That's a product introduction. The third thing that you would use an A-frame sign would be is to introduce a seasonal application. What do I mean by that? You're in the Easter business. You're in we have this weekend, we have Mother's Day business, okay? So there are ways that you communicate to the traffic that's walking by the retail location. It is inexpensive and extremely effective. When you don't do that, you minimize your ability to communicate to walking traffic. This town has been known as a hub for walking traffic that walks up and down the streets, either on East Ridgewood Avenue or on the side streets. By eliminating those signs, you eliminate our ability to communicate to our potential clients that are in the marketplace. Now, a lot of the marketplace in the downtown Ridgewood community is from outside Ridgewood. They don't know who the retailers are. They may go to a restaurant and then they walk down the street at night. They don't know who we are. The reason the A-frame signs are out there is so you have a level of communication to the marketplace. Again, by eliminating them unilaterally, I'm not exactly sure what the reasoning was for it. And so that's why I brought it to the attention at the last chamber meeting, and Roberta was very open to have a discussion as well in reference to, because my opinion is always, if you have a question or a concern, you elevate it and you find out where it started from and see if we can figure this out together. And from my standpoint, as a business owner and the business community working together with the council, if there's an issue with A-frame signs, let's discuss it together. But to unilaterally eliminate them without having that discussion is not a good play both for the community and for the retail community. Ed is here because he's done a lot of research on it also to look at what some of the other communities in New Jersey have done. Nobody really is eliminating it. For example, he wants to pass out a report from Princeton, New Jersey, that breaks it down literally by size, location, different applications to make sure that everybody stays within bounds, whatever the bounds might be. But we ask a question, is there a safety issue with A-frame signs? We look back in the history of, and Ed did the research, we look back in the history of Ridgewood. There is, in the last 5 years, there is not one issue in reference to A-frame signs. Is there an aesthetic issue? Well, then you start, and again, the answer was no, there is an aesthetic issue, but if there is, let's talk about what the parameters of what A-frame signs should be. But the idea of, again, I don't want to repeat myself, but to unilaterally just eliminate them makes absolutely no sense for the community as well as the community as a whole and the business community.
Sure. No, I appreciate that. And what I want to do is just clarify something, and I appreciate your point. And as Ed can tell you, we talked about this a few years ago, and I am a supporter of it. And I think there's a way that those conversations got halted a few years ago, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, because there was actually in part because there was some disagreement within the chamber community as to what the signs would be, because some businesses wouldn't be able to because of the setback from the sidewalk and what have you. But I don't want to get to that right now. Just for clarification purposes, it wasn't sort of unilaterally, because you keep saying that. It was more of enforcing, maybe, and we haven't been enforcing that rule.
There's no A-frame signs in the community at all now. That's what I mean by
Okay, but
So obviously it's a long-standing ordinance. It's been there for decades, I guess. To say there was no enforcement is a misstatement. There was not consistent enforcement. When Chris was out, he would enforce. Now that we have more of we have a code enforcement officer, we did sit down with the chamber, we did do communications with the guild, and one outcome of that was that there were not many summonses issued because the compliance was really pretty good because of the communication. So that's where it stands, but it is an ordinance right now.
And that's helpful, right? And so that's helpful. So it's an ordinance that's been on the books for many years, inconsistent enforcement. The question now before us, as it was a few years ago, is should we change that?
Correct.
And if the answer is yes, or potentially yes, what are the alternatives? What are other communities doing? What are some? And I know, Ed, you have some innovative ideas. You've spent a lot of time on this. Maybe you want to share that with everyone.
Good evening. Ed Sullivan. I'm a local landlord, member of the Board of Directors of the Chamber of Commerce, and past president of the Chamber of Commerce. As you know, I have been for many years in favor of allowing sidewalk signs in the central business district because they do help promote business. They do catch the eye in a walking town in particular, which we are. And when you're walking down a street, as you pass a store, you really have to look up. Well, what is that store? What's the name of that store? You recognize the product as you're passing the window, but if you don't live here, you might not remember the name. Sidewalk signs overcome that, and they give a spontaneity to, if you would, the purchase decision, whether it's purchasing goods or going to a restaurant. It evokes a degree of spontaneity which you could not otherwise achieve. And I think that's something that is very important. I can tell you for a fact that many businesses, and I'm sure you've heard this from others as well, are struggling in the CBD. We haven't come back from, the past recession. It's tough times out there. It's not easy for retailers or restaurants. We haven't been able to achieve the levels of walking traffic that we had in the past. So we're trying to, if you would, attract businesses, make it a more friendly climate. With that said, Philip gave you a level of passion because he's directly affected. I'm indirectly, but I think it's something that's very good. He's impressed you with passion. I shall bore you with detail. I've given you some handouts at the moment, and Philip has already told you that I found many towns throughout the country do allow sidewalk signs as a permitted use. In the course of my investigation, I found that in December of 2015, and this is very relevant because it's local, Princeton has now agreed to allow sidewalk signs, and I'll give you a copy of their ordinance.
We'll just give it all to them so you can go back. Thanks.
Thank you.
I think we would agree that by any measure, Princeton and is certainly a relevant town relative to Ridgewood. I mean, it's an upper end town, it's a walkable town. In many ways, it's very much like us. So they have decided that sidewalk signs should be permitted. I think it is something that we probably should take, if you would, a window to explore and investigate. We're not proposing that the council rush out and approve the use of sidewalk signs. What we are proposing is that we take a study period to identify how applicable they are, what issues arise, and so that we can make an intelligent decision, so the council can make an intelligent decision going forward. At the meeting quite recently, which Roberta attended, it came to as a suggestion, actually made by Tom Hillman, that maybe what we do is we take now through the end of the year and do a test period, see how it works out. And the reasoning for that is, as we know, we're coming into, and it's something we need to move on kind of quickly, we're coming into the spring season where people are just starting to come out. Unfortunately, April has been rainy and business has not been good. Hopefully that will turn in May. We know that May and June should hopefully be pretty good. We know July and August will be basically very quiet in the CBD. But then we'd like to see what the fall season is like, so that by the end of the year, we will know exactly how effective they are, what issues there are, and how we should move forward. So we're not asking the council at this time to even think about an ordinance. We're asking for the council to indulge us so that we can do our diligence and come back to you with intelligent data.
Can I ask you a question? I think those are excellent ideas, but just to clarify, are you talking about do a little study now with council members, with the chamber, and then do a trial run, or are you talking about start a trial run now as at the same time, sort of walk and chew gum and study it meanwhile?
Right. We'd like to do a trial run now, get it moving. Hopefully the weather will turn nice, and then have enough data so that we can all make an intelligent decision by the end of the year. Sure. That would be our hope.
Let me ask, because this might be a new issue for the council members. I don't know if people have thoughts right now.
Yeah, I was wondering, if we were going to do this, would we have to amend the ordinance, or is there a way to keep the ordinance in place and suspend it and just say, okay, we're going to try and, I mean, what would we have to do legally because there is the ordinance on the books?
Well, the formal way to do it would be to suspend the ordinance if you're going to allow it a time period in which to operate, or, allow people to put out these signs. I don't know, if that's what's being asked for, but in the study, but if that's the case, that's what you would have to do.
To do a trial run, we would have to suspend the ordinance.
You have to suspend the present ordinance.
Okay.
Yeah, that's basically what I was getting at. You could come back to me.
Okay. Oh, yeah, so actually, first, I love Kilwins. That's first and foremost. So Ed, a couple things that you said actually resonate. Just last night at the planning board meeting, we were discussing a lot of action items in our master plan, and we did some housekeeping, and it was part of my report tonight, but one of the things you stated as to when somebody's walking up the street, they actually have to kind of step back and look up to identify which store they're in front of, other than the obvious identifying with product in the window. And so we just started to look at that and really, as a housekeeping item, clean that up so that people really know where they are and what store they're looking at. They don't have to step out. But I actually think this is a tool of the trade that you need. I think it's a staple of retail, especially in today's environment when retail is so competitive and you have all these forces. And we shouldn't be tying the hands of our retailers and our businesses in our central business district. This is an opportunity to promote, to have visibility, and to generate interest in your wares. And so I'm fully supportive of suspending. I'd be fully supportive of immediately getting rid of it and say, put the signs there and have the best business in Ridgewood and in the county anywhere. So I just think we should not be tying the hands of our businesses downtown, and you should have access to every opportunity.
I just want to reinforce something that Ed had said.
Let's go to the microphone.
Microphone.
Oh, I just wanted to reinforce one thing that Ed had said, is that...
I'm sorry, can you be recorded?
The conversation here is that we as a business community want to look at it also, and we want to use the prototypes of different communities that are effectively using it. If there's limitations because of structural differences between side streets and main streets, let us look at it together, but let's not hinder the business community while we're learning this together at the height of the traffic patterns.
You might already have us at hello, so why don't we...
I think we've made our pitch. Hopefully, you'll indulge us and let us proceed with the
Actually,
study.
can you hear the other council members? Please, Albert.
Thank you. I think the vibrancy of the central business district is key. It's one of, I always say, the three legs of the stool, if you will. It's the school system, it's the sense of community, and it's the vibrancy of our central business district. And I wouldn't for a minute substitute my lawyer's judgment for how to market retail. I mean, that would really be a mistake. But I think that I know that there might be concerns about clutter and this and that, but on the other hand, any of these freestanding signs that I've seen, particularly the menus, tend to be very inviting, and they tend to be very, very attractive to retailers. I also think that our businesses are, for the most part, not national chains, and they don't have the benefit of national advertising on television or whatever other media is used for the large chains and franchises. Most of our retailers are not franchisees of national franchisors. So I think anything we can do to help them. As far as implementing it on a temporary basis, I just looked very quickly at the Princeton ordinance, and it appears to be a pretty good roadmap for proceeding on an experimental basis. In other words, if we were going to do this immediately, so we could suspend the ordinance and then say, okay, you can use freestanding signs, I would suggest that we use as guidelines, I guess that's what they would be for the time being, the ordinance, particularly sections D, 2, et cetera, on the size and placement of the freestanding signs. That would give us a good idea as to whether, say, the Princeton model, which on first and quick reading looks pretty good, would be one that we can imitate. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. So anyway, I'm all in favor of A, proceeding as quickly as possible, B, using the Princeton criteria, subject to reading them a little more carefully, but I assume you have, as the guideline for how we proceed on an interim basis.
I went to the Chamber of Commerce meeting that one day when all the members of the Board of Directors were begging for the council to listen to this, and it made its way onto the agenda. So I saw firsthand the passion, and there's nothing that exceeded the passion behind something as simple as an A-frame sign, which most of us underestimate how that generates business, how effective it is. My one reservation, and I don't have any reservations really, is that it's not plastic and cheap looking, and there's got to be some criteria, something that is within the keeping of the character of the Village of Ridgewood, and that could be written in, and it can actually be beautiful. It could be a chalkboard with wood frames or something like that that is appealing, but these pictures of the plastic ones that look like construction site signs would be obviously not within bounds. So I'm sure the pilot program is going to prove to write an excellent ordinance for that. And also right-of-way. I'm sure that with the cafe laws and things that have been addressed by Roberta and the engineer lately, and the whole crew of people, that the sign placement would be extremely important, just as the Princeton ordinance also outlined.
Great.
That's all.
Thanks.
Yeah, I would just, I'd like to say, agree with the deputy mayor that we could use the Princeton ordinance as a guideline. I went through it, I did glance at it briefly, and I looked at this one part here that says proximity to business facade. The sign shall be located no more than 4 feet from the business facade it advertises. So I don't know if maybe ours is 4 feet or if it's something less, given the sidewalk width and everything. I would just, wouldn't want, I'd want to have some sort of guidelines in place, basically, because I wouldn't want to just like kind of have it as the Wild West, and people have sandwich boards right in the middle of the sidewalks when people are trying to walk around to create, a safety hazard or any kind of impasse for, people in wheelchairs or people with strollers and things like that. So there would have to be some kind of guidelines, but I'm all for giving it a shot and, floating up a trial balloon and see what happens here.
Great. So why don't we do this? Why don't you guys work with Roberta and Matt, actually, to draft this ordinance?
Well, what you would do, first of all, if you're going to do the period, the study period, you would resolve next week by resolution to suspend the enforcement of the present zoning ordinance for a period of time.
You can use a resolution to suspend an ordinance?
Yeah, you would do it that way, just that
You don't need an ordinance?
suspend the enforcement of the ordinance.
Okay.
You don't knock the ordinance off the books, you just suspend the
If at the same time, though, we could memorialize some criteria, and maybe it's based on the Princeton, with some adjustments if necessary.
Well, that's what the study group, is that kind of what the study
No,
time period is
but
about?
even for this trial period, just because we don't want it to be the Wild West, right? So you want some criteria, and maybe we could memorialize some of that criteria in that resolution if we're going to use this to establish.
I absolutely concur when Albert said that, because I had in my head, we really do need some guidelines. Like even weight. Ed and I talked about that this afternoon. We don't want flighty, A-frames in the central business district. We may not want them between the planters either. So there's a whole bunch of stuff that kind of goes with this as far as guidelines go. So we could work with the CB, with these guys, and Matt and myself, or Matt and Chris, to get that done, or Matt and Tracy, actually.
I'm just thinking that if we just suspend the enforcement for the moment, this gives us an opportunity to even just work with the chamber and maybe look at the just different designs as to what Councilman Houck pointed out. And then as this evolves, when we're ready to introduce it, we can have all those guidelines and maybe have like at least some continuity in the design, which I think is a smart approach.
Just to clarify, I'm sorry. Are you saying just suspend it and without establishing criteria?
Yeah, I think we should suspend it, because what you're doing right now is what you're doing. And so you've been doing it all along, and it hasn't been a problem, and then enforcement rolled in, and then we had this issue. So why don't we just suspend enforcement for the moment so that we can really look at this and get it right? And in terms of, because they've been doing it all along, it just was this enforcement issue that came up.
There have been some issues with people using larger and more obstructive things. I don't know why we can't establish some criteria just for next week and put it right in this resolution. I think that would make sense.
You certainly you have to take the time to make sure that you get that aspect right.
Just a few things.
I don't know whether the council wants to comment into
out.
Roberta so that Roberta can kind of go through that. But everybody's got to know that the suspension doesn't take place until the resolution is voted on.
Which is next Wednesday night.
Which would be next, so it wouldn't be until Thursday, the 12th, I suppose?
That's more than fair. I mean, the order time at least would be...
You've got another week where summonses can be issued.
That's very fair. I mean, we know the time of the essence. Hopefully the weather will improve and business will improve, and now we can attract the customers.
All I can say as a retailer is this weekend's Mother's Day, guys, and it directly affects our bottom line. If we can, people are going to be, only hope that it stops raining by Friday, and Saturday and Sunday, there's going to be a lot of traffic on the streets. And if you can't communicate that you're in the game because people are walking up and down the streets, it's a problem. And I don't want to miss a major holiday and say, let's do it 10 days from now. And I appreciate what you're saying.
Yeah, but I mean, you're here tonight. This is the quickest that the board can act. So you've got to be doing it. And you're not open Sunday, Sunday's blue laws anyway, so.
I think the council is being very fair and moving this very expeditiously, so I appreciate it. We'll work on, there are things in the Princeton ordinance, frankly, that I think they were probably a little bit too liberal in my mind. That's one of the reasons I gave you a sample of a sidewalk sign. They're allowing 3-foot width, as I recall. That's a little bit too wide for us. We need something a little narrower. So I'm aware of those things. We'll work through it. The old engineer and me will figure out a solution. One of the things, by the way, for going for a brand sign as opposed to something that might look nicer is some technical issues. Those type of plastic signs allow themselves to be filled with sand to make them heavier for wind, and they're designed for wind load. Where if we allow ones that are very nice and maybe homemade, they might not stand the wind and the elements. We want to be sure these things don't go sailing down the street. So the issue here is these are tested and true, and really you don't look at the frame, you look at the graphics on it. The real key here is the graphics that go on it, how the design quotient of it. Your eye misses the frame entirely. Right. When the graphics are done right. And I think that's the key to the success, and hopefully the retailers will do that and benefit from it. But I appreciate the speed with which you folks are moving tonight.
I was going to say, I think our interests are aligned, where if you come up with crummy-looking signs that look like, wet floor, like a wet floor mopping sign, obviously, A, there's nothing to be gained for you, and B, when it comes back to an ordinance, presumably the next council will say, it really didn't work because they didn't look pretty good. So it's in your interest, too, I think, to put signs out that will be attractive enough that the experiment will be deemed to be a success. And I think you're right. The Princeton thing, for example, doesn't address the texture of the signs. Is plastic okay? Does it have to be a blackboard?
Exactly. There's many manufacturers out there. I just grabbed one. So we'll go through it and give you some more detail. Another thing that I had suggested to Roberta, and I hate to say it, but I will, I see this as being a permit issue. When hopefully it's approved and we will go forward. Should be an annual permit issue. There should probably be, and this is the landlord and me coming out, a fee associated with it each year because it's a privilege, not a right. Essentially, the retailer is renting a tiny portion of space from the village, so the village should be compensated for it.
Why don't we do this? Why don't we hold that for that sort of study?
We'll hold that for the next
one. What we'll do now is,
we're going to do that.
If you guys can get with Roberta and Matt, work it out so we can adopt this next week.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you both. Okay. Shall we start?
What's next?
We're on discussion items. Parking.
Oh, parking.
So we're on 10A.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right? Should we start?
Please.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. So for a change, we have nothing under parking. So we're on 10B1. So 10B1 has to do with SCADA. We've been upgrading the software system that operates SCADA for Ridgewood Water. Mm-hmm. It allows us to control aspects of the water process remotely. Now we're on to we're calling it phase 1A, and this is hardware installation training. It consists of hardware and storage tanks so that the storage tanks can communicate to the system. We would be doing 9 out of 10 tanks. One of the tanks already has modern equipment on it. And eventually, after that, we can start doing some nifty things from a security standpoint as well. So that's 10B1.
Any questions, my colleagues? The data on this is so technical that, and it's expensive, but it is, it's the kind of issue where we really rely on the recommendation of management. But I encourage, if anybody has any questions about it, by all means. But.
Okay, so I went to the water department and got the tour 2 times. The second time was the most impressive because it's all computerized now, where everything used to be on paper and everything had to be logged in constantly. It's just not the way you run a modern water department.
Yeah.
It seems to be the most expensive item, obviously, one of the most expensive items, but we couldn't do without it.
Right.
How long does this take?
How long does this project take?
Right.
I think to the end of the year, did we say? To the end of the year. That's the first piece, and then there are other pieces that go on top of this. Right, but SCADA is really important to us.
No, I know. I was just kind of how quickly it processes. Okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so this next one, 10B2, is an award of $70,000 for laboratory services to agri-environmental. A lot of this is mainly weekly testing. You'll notice in part of Group 3, it's bi-weekly testing. It's budgeted for. Yes.
All right, good?
Good.
All right.
Okay. 10B3, this is a resolution to award transmission replacement and repairs for two Packer trucks. There's enough money in here for 3. We have 12 Packer trucks, we think. I think we have 12 in the fleet. So this gives us a little room for when one of them breaks again.
Everybody good?
And they
Are
do.
these the garbage packer trucks?
These are garbage Packer trucks.
I was just curious, this is the first year we collected a lot of Christmas trees and ground them up in the back of the truck. Did that
That's the
cause-
second year. This is
did
the
it cause-
second year.
Does that cause any problem with the blades?
I
Or
don't
the packing?
know. I'm
Okay,
looking at
great.
Rich. I didn't think so, but he's the expert. No, and we did it last year. Remember the first two
Randomly?
seasons
not-
ago?
Yeah.
No, we
Oh,
did
it was
it.
every single holiday tree? Okay, good.
Yep.
Great.
Can I go? So this is the annual bid for landscaping services. This is up a bit, and it's up a bit because we've added snow removal to this as well. In the past, the snow removal was actually done by the staff that were supposed to be monitoring water, and this was not such a good idea. So now we have an outside contractor. So that's why this is a bit higher than it's been for landscaping alone.
Any questions? All right.
10B5, you do not have backup for this yet, but this is a placeholder. I'm going to call it a placeholder, Heather, right? This is the awarding the contract for the printing for the special referendum election in June. So maybe by next week.
Yeah, I'm in the process now of obtaining quotes so that if we do have the election, then we can award it at next week's meeting.
Okay, great.
Okay, this starts Bob, so I'm going to ask Bob to come up, but I'll start with 10B6. We talked a lot about this during the budget discussions, particularly when we discussed capital. So this is what we're considering good capital management and freeing up room and total debt so we can do a larger investment than we have been doing. So this is, you'll note in the detail, we're cleaning up $1.5 million in capital for the village, and we're cleaning up $710,000 in capital for the water utility. Bob, you can come up. 10B7, as he's walking up, this is just the ordinance to implement, what I'll call implement the capital portion of the 2016 capital plan. The actual ordinances, I was going to say, are being prepared by bond counsel, but we received them late this afternoon, so they'll be ready for next week. The one error here on page 1 is that we didn't change those police vehicles. We changed the numbers of the total dollar amount, but there are no 7. There are 4 police vehicles, not 7. So, do you want to add anything on the capital?
Sure. This coincides with the presentations we made during our budget meetings. And we've brought this up to date to the 2 ordinances that we've done so far this year. So what's the remaining balance is the $4.5 million in the general fund, $4.5 million in the capital, and we've already introduced the ordinance for the parking garage. So this is up to date. Ordinance, the ordinance you'll get next week, you'll get 2, one for water and one for general capital.
So it coincides with the adoption of the budget next week. The next one, again, this has to do with the settlement of the PBA contract. This would be the salary ordinance that supports the settlement. It's in preparation of signing the contract. We have not signed the contract as yet. So we can introduce this, but we can't adopt it until it's signed. The fervent hope here is that between the time it's introduced next week and maybe even before that, we'll have signed contracts. So that's what this does.
And if it comes up in the date and for some reason it's not signed, we can just carry it to the next meeting, right? No?
No, because you would adopt it in June, and so if you can't adopt it in June, it would have to be reintroduced in July with a new council.
That's separate council, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Perfect. Okay.
But we have 5 weeks.
Yeah.
So it can be introduced next week, not signed, but
Right.
within the pursuit. And 10B9 is the other piece of this. As I mentioned last week when I was talking through the details of the police contract, we've changed the fee for the officer from $89 an hour to $95 an hour. I just want to stress that we're not changing our admin fee. We are just changing the hourly rate for the officer. And again, this is in preparation for the contract being signed. Okay?
Good.
Bob, I'll hand off 10B10 to you, which is the surplus policy.
10B10 is best practices recommended by the State of New Jersey Department of Community Affairs. And what it does is it creates guidelines as to the amount of surplus that we're going to maintain every year. So it establishes 10% as the bottom and 15% as the top. So we fall in, right now we have for several years now, fallen within those guidelines. But basically it says if you get to 10% or less, then you agree to do X, Y, and Z. Again, it's a guideline, it's a recommendation. And those guidelines may include, increased taxation to get to where you need to be. Or if you have excess of more than 15%, utilize that money in a reserve to pay debt service. So you stay within those guidelines. So it's encouraged by the state. We get a plus for it if we adopt it this year or pass the resolution in best practices. So that's what its intent is.
So this is new for us, and if you recall, when we do, every year we do best practices, and we make sure that we don't make sure, we go, say yes, no, and we have come up the last many years with enough points to get full state funding. They withhold 5%, or 5% of state funding?
It's the full.
If you don't meet the 80.
If you don't, you go down 5%.
Yeah. Right, so this adds another point to our, and it's also it's good practice.
Good practice, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and the range puts us at either 3.7 million to 5.6 million, roughly. And the budget, the anticipated surplus in the budget was something like
3.3 this year.
3.300,000.
Right.
Okay, the 10%.
Over to the utilized surplus on the right, 2016.
It's all the way. It's on that. It's on
It's
that
on the
chart.
it's on the memo.
2016. Yeah, but it's 3.3 million.
Right.
Surplus balance is 5.10 million, which is within the 10 to 15% range.
Correct.
Right. Okay. So, thank you.
The next one.
I do have.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's just an educational question for me, but I'm not going to be on the council next year, so it doesn't matter. But it's curious. When you have leftover surplus, how do you account for that? Is it stay in the surplus fund and it keeps building up so that, is it obvious? It says here that every year we put in, 2.57, 2.95, 2.98, 3.3, but we had set aside a lot more than that.
So the utilized surplus is your anticipation of how profitable you're going to be during the year. So if you anticipate more than the 3.3, it keeps going into surplus and building and building and building. Okay.
So but then theoretically you'd have to actually set aside less because you just want to maintain a balance of between 5 and 10% surplus.
Correct. So the
10
idea
and 15% surplus.
The idea of the 15% is you don't want to grow more than 15% because then you're not putting it back, you're not utilizing it. You're putting it away for a rainy day, but it's way too much more than you need.
Right.
Good.
Right, and the last couple of years, the balance that we've left in surplus has increased.
Yeah, that's
Not
what
by
I
a
mean.
lot,
That's
but it
what I
has
mean.
increased,
Yeah.
And if you recall, the conversations we had during budget time this year was that because there's risk to the numbers, particularly from a legal perspective, that we wanted to leave more in surplus and be more conservative, just in case. Right.
Makes sense.
I guess the next one is the review of annual unaudited financial statements. So that's Bob.
So
again.
in my continuing to provide council with financial information on a timely basis, this would be the December 31 balances unaudited that we file with the state in our annual financial statement. It's for the operating funds, parking, water, and current. It shows very good results for both, all three funds. My intent next month would be to provide you with the first quarter of 2016 results on revenue expense as to where we are in relation to our budget. So again, it's any questions you have, I'd be happy to entertain.
I guess the number that's like the plug number to balance assets and liabilities is the fund balance number on the liabilities sheet.
Yeah, if you go to the second page, you'll see the results operations. That's the number that moves it in.
Yeah. I'm used to seeing, shareholders' equity, but this is,
yes.
So that's you call it a fund balance, and it's
right.
$5,142,000. And that's the plug number, so they balance. Interesting, right.
Yeah. Do you want us to go through this in more detail, or is this
No, I'm okay. I was just curious how it balanced. It wasn't just a coincidence.
You better balance.
Okay.
No, we're good.
Great.
Are we okay? All right, so, okay, Mike, you're okay? Did you have a question? Mike?
No,
Okay.
no,
All right. Okay, 10B12, this has to do with the sewer line collapse.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you, Bob. Sewer line collapse on Dayton Street. We had to retain an emergency contractor. We did go out for quotes. Conquest had the lowest daily rate. So this amount of money reflects work that was done, some work that's about to be done, plus police fees, as well as the fee for the camera that we needed to use to look at through the pipe.
Any questions?
Nope. Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, that's all right.
Why did it collapse?
I don't know. Do you know? Rich, I know this is Chris, but did you happen to know why this collapsed on Dayton? I just don't remember.
It was what's called vitrified.
Good evening. Welcome.
Good evening. Thank you. If it's what's called vitrified clay pipe, otherwise known as VCP pipe, it comes in 3-foot sections, and over time they tend to crack. And from what Chris had told me, sections of the pipe were literally collapsed where there was little to no means of conveyance of the flow. Therefore, it was backing up and overflowing, potentially overflowing into homes. So, therefore, the emergency.
Yeah, and there was no overflow into any homes. I mean, we have not heard of any overflow into homes.
Yeah, I think they got it in time.
Yeah, we got it in time.
Great. Thanks, Rich.
Thank you, Rich.
Great photographs of the inside of the pipe.
You like that, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the camera cost of $2,650 to rent that camera to do those photos. The next one is award to purchase under the National Cooperative Purchasing Agreement a bucket truck to replace an old bucket truck. This was in last year's capital. It was approved last year. We use this to maintain traffic signals as well as the fiber optic network.
All right.
10B14, last budget item. So this is for our GIS sewer system, asset maintenance software, and annual maintenance fee. So this is where we keep track of all aspects from a GIS perspective of the sanitary sewer collection system as well as the stormwater collection system. And we're also adding to that computerized maps of accidents as well as where all of our signs are. So it's just adding to our GIS capabilities. More automation. All of you, policy, grade and pool, I mentioned this last week, same as last year. You all have, I think Janet left you all a couple of things on front of your chairs. Regular season is June 4th through August 14th, daily 10 to 7:30. July 4th, we close at 4. Late season, August 15th through Labor Day, September 5th, weekdays 12 to 7:30, weekends and holidays 10 to 7:30. So you have the brochure.
Great.
Lastly, D1, this is just another cooperative pricing system that we're going to become members of that we could use for procurement. And
Well,
that's it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Heather.
Okay, we have 3 proclamations, National Cancer Survivors Day, Emergency Medical Services Week, and proclaiming May as Mental Health Month. We have a swearing in of our fire lieutenant. We have the budget hearing, and then also the adoption of the budget consideration. We have ordinances for introduction, vehicles and traffic for Brookside Avenue parking restrictions, 2 bond ordinances, 1 general capital, the other water utility capital, police department salary ordinance, amending chapter 145 fees for police officer fees on outside jobs, and amending chapter 265 vehicles and traffic for the Pomander Walk parking restrictions. The public hearings on ordinances include the significant sewer discharge fees, establishing the position of qualified purchasing agent, establishing a cap bank, a bond ordinance for the cleaning of the anaerobic digesters at the water pollution control facility, establishing guidelines for audio-video recording of public meetings, and establishing the Ridgewood Community Action Network. Resolutions include awarding contract for transmission replacement and repairs, awarding contract for repair of a garage wall for the water department, awarding contract for the printing for the special referendum election if we need that, Title 59 approval and award contract for landscaping services for Ridgewood Water, Title 59 approval and award of contract for the cleaning of the anaerobic digesters at the Water Pollution Control Facility, Title 59 approval and award of contract for the infrared asphalt service repair, trench patching, and miscellaneous curb and sidewalk work, Title 59 approval and award of contract for furnishing, delivering, and maintenance of emergency equipment, radios, and vehicle computer systems. We have award contract under National Cooperative Purchasing Agreement for purchase of a bucket truck for traffic and signal, awarding professional services contract for certified forester to prepare the community forestry management plan, award professional services contract for GIS services for engineering, award extraordinary unspecifiable services contract for the Bel Air pump station repairs, also for the SCADA software upgrade hardware and software support, Phase 1A for Ridgewood Water, awarding extraordinary unspecifiable services contract for laboratory services for Ridgewood Water, and also the repair of the collapsed sewer on Dayton Street. We reject the bids for the janitorial services for various village facilities, establishing budget surplus policy, cancel general and water utility capital balances, authorizing the participation in the Houston-Galveston Area Council Cooperative Pricing Agreement, appointing a qualified purchasing agent, the resolution to suspend enforcement of the sign ordinance and set at least preliminary criteria for the test period, and also the resolution to appoint the chair of the Ridgewood Community Action Network. Do you want any of those off the consent agenda?
Yes, the award contract for printing for special referendum election.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
Can I add something?
Sure, if I missed
It's just
it,
a proclamation. I wanted to give you a heads up.
Okay.
I can do that in private later, or should I say it now?
No, yeah, what is it?
May is Older Americans Month.
Oh, okay.
And I wanted to hopefully be able to have I have a sample proclamation.
Okay, sure.
I can work with you on it if you want.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll put that on.
Thank you, thank you.
Okay.
All right, thanks, Heather. Appreciate it. And now we will go to the manager's report. How long is long? I don't even see it.
Maybe 10 minutes, I'm not sure. Okay, so just an update on the PSE&G gas project. As you know, major construction started on May 2nd. Will continue for 4 months. The majority of work on West Glen Avenue. Breaking news, hot off the press on this one. They just postponed a little bit and stopped working on West Glen. Apparently, there were some problems with the Bergen County permits, so we're waiting to hear more on that. The detour plans have been put together with the goal of having as minimum impact to our residents as possible. They'll be monitored for traffic impacts daily by police officers. Monday, they basically did some setup. Tuesday, some more work, mainly staging, and they suspended, as I said, they suspended work this morning on Glen. The PSE&G is responsible. They have sent out notices. They will send out robocall alerts to customers about the work. Some accommodations that we've made, just to let you know how detailed this has gotten with PSE&G. There's one home on West Glen Avenue with a special needs student, so PSE&G will ensure that the bus can make the pickup every morning. The engineering staff and police department are providing PSE&G with the work site at West Glen and North Monroe to set up materials and save some time. We changed the hours of work for this project so to work around school dismissal particularly. And we redirected work away from the utility pole installation that's going on Maple and East Glen. So the gas work will begin on Sterling Place on May 5th. There are a whole bunch of streets that will be impacted, including West Glen between North Monroe and North Maple, East Glen between Fairfield Avenue and George Street, Lawrence Court, Heights Road, Monte Vista, Madison Place, Alpine Terrace, Colwell Court, Douglas Place, Park Slope between Monte Vista and Madison Place, Ridge Road, Heights Road, and Crest Road, Sterling Place between East Glen to Kensington and Glenwood Road. Out in the mail, I guess it was yesterday, Janet, right? People should start getting these today, is the budget newsletter. And I want to give a shout out to the Finance Advisory Committee as well, helped us with some of this again this year. And as mentioned by Heather earlier, the the budget hearing is scheduled for next Wednesday. I thought I would give you all a update on Habernickel and Health Barn. You all have in front of you pictures. So let me start by saying the lease started on March 1st. The payments have been on time. They've been deposited in accordance with Green Acre requirements. The construction, we respected the neighbors and park users by not using a dumpster. We actually, Health Barn actually had the materials brought out every day. They followed landscape ordinance hours, no construction noise. The required permits and inspections were done, and you'll note here in these pictures that the kitchen, the meeting rooms, ADA accessible bathrooms, and the utility room were done. Some of you have already seen it, but what we have here is the kitchen, for example. Top pictures are what it used to look like. Bottom pictures are what it looks like now. Huge improvement. If you take a look at the two meeting rooms, the smaller one is where the seedlings meet. The little kids, little children, the upper room, new lighting, new furnishing for the larger meeting room. I think on the third page you'll see a marked change in the bathroom from being small and old to ADA compliant and larger. And also the utility room was renovated as well. So these are pictures before and after for you. The village has installed fiber for connectivity in the satellite recreation office that we have there, and a lightning detection alert monitor was hooked up finally. We installed required fire and security systems to protect village property. We installed an exterior camera, as there has not been a full-time presence at the park. We found some items that made us think that there's visitation in the evening at that park. We reinstalled the water hookup. The tenant pays for water. We reconnected two approved parking lot light fixtures not completed by the previous contractor in 2010. The village power washed the house as required in the lease. As far as traffic and safety goes, all Citizen Safety Committee requirements have been implemented. True crosswalks, parking allowed on park side, other side no parking. We painted those ticks on the street for people backing in and out of their driveways, having no cars kind of encroach. We've done 2 traffic studies, both of them were positive, and we have another one scheduled. There's been a weather delay on the double yellow line, and this week it's raining, so we will get to that. As far as transportation goes, we have been monitoring traffic and parking. We've been very close to this issue. So far, we have had no issues with either parking or traffic. We have the Health Barn proactively works with Tim and company on game schedules versus their classes. We've had some minibuses arrive, particularly the Bergen County Special Services for Special Needs Children came in a minibus for their class. We do have class trips, and we only have those large buses Monday through Friday, and we have rerouted those buses so they do not travel on Hillcrest. They come up through Waldwick, and they come through North Monroe. So there's very little bus traffic that we've added anywhere in the area. The buses park at Graydon Lot, waiting for the return trip. As far as classes go, they're all following leasing requirements. Ridgewood residents, as well as residents from other towns, are enrolling their children in health-born programs. 6 mothers on Hillcrest bring their little ones each week to a class for seedlings. Spring break camp this spring, more than half of the children lived in Ridgewood, and many are being enrolled in summer camp. We just got a call, or at least Healthborn got a call from Brooklyn, a resident that's moving in who is enrolling her child for summer school. The Ridgewood Girl Scouts have been there. Local pediatricians have been recommending Healthborn to parents. We've had a class trip from Ridgewood Co-op Nursery School. Neighbors are stopping by to see what's happening. One neighbor, I guess, Janet, said that the house is no longer rented. Another dog walker in the park, and I think I sent this to you guys, said, "It makes my heart glad to see my park is actually being used." A child who was participating in the children's lacrosse program, and her mother stopped by to sign up her child for a health barn program while the other was doing lacrosse, and that's kind of it. So on the classes, the garden that is being installed there has been tested. The soil has been tested by Rutgers. They did that, and is being prepared for planting. With the dirt being mixed with compost, fencing is being installed to keep out various critters. Neighbor and park users are showing an excitement with the newly installed garden, where having 3 additional community plots will be available to residents there as well for planting. The ribbon cutting is this Saturday, May 7th, by invitation. Again, scheduling sensitive in between the baseball games, and we're discussing options for an open house for neighbors. Healthborn has a strong desire to have a positive dialogue and be hospitable to her neighbors. So I just wanted to give you an update on how this was going. So that's Habernickel. Shedler. And I can give you a printed copy of Shedler. Last week, Jackie Hone posed a question to this council regarding the meeting that was held on March 28th. March 28th, it says May 20th, my thing. March 28th at the Bergen County Trust. So we looked at the minutes, and I just want to kind of put into record what we found vis-a-vis the comments that were made last week. So several of us have reviewed the minutes of the March 28th public hearing of the Bergen County Trust Fund. We have also spoken with the county regarding the minutes and actions required to be taken by the village. I'll get to the punchline first and then provide details. There is no further action required by the village at this time. The grant application is deemed complete. As a matter of fact, the grant application process would not have proceeded to the March 28th hearing if there was anything missing or if any additional information was required. So that's kind of the headline. So I want to start by discussing the overall approach to this grant and the park project. I have mentioned this a couple of times during council meetings, but having reviewed the minutes, some statements made by the Shedler neighbors do not seem to take this into consideration. So I do feel the need to clarify it. What we have said and what I believe the council endorses is that we will not take any action on the cleanup until after a sound study is performed to determine the impact that any type of removal would have on the level of sound. I think we all can concurred on that. If the sound study indicates that the noise would worsen, we would go forward with a sound barrier project, again before removing any trees or structures, including the garage and the shed. Furthermore, we have not put this out to bid. There was a sense that we put this out. This has not gone out to bid. We still need to do that at some point, and we're not planning on doing anything right away. This grant has a 2-year life, and we can hold off on using these funds for a period of time. Okay, now to the facts and details. It was averred by Ms. Hone at last week's council meeting that the village has been put on notice by the Open Space Trust Fund Board regarding Shedler Historic Preservation of both Parcel and House, Wildlife and Migratory Act. While the minutes indicate that there was discussion of these issues amongst Open Space Trust Board members, there was no direction to the Village of Ridgewood to respond to these issues at this time. We further inquired with Bergen County Trust Fund staff who affirmed this understanding. A bit more detail surrounding the wildlife. Just for the record, the village requested and reported to the county the results of an NJDEP National Heritage Database search for the Shedler area. The report stated that there were sightings of a bald eagle, endangered, and black-crowned night heron, threatened, within a quarter-mile vicinity of the Shedler property. The report noted that the condition was a potential for foraging and did not note any nesting. There's no other action that the village needs to take right now. As we embark upon the project, we will do what we always do, which is comply with all applicable federal, state, and local laws and regulations in connection with this project. A bit more information regarding the historical preservation of the house and the land. Again, there were no actions required for the village to take in this area. The house is not part of the Phase 1 plans at all. As reported in the March 28th hearing minutes, Elaine Kiernan Gold, who's the administrator of Bergen County Historic Preservation, said that, and this is a quote, "There is a certificate of eligibility on the property for the house." She also noted that, in another quote, "You actually have to apply for really any level of legal protection." In other words, the house is not on the historic or the state or the National Preservation Register. In fact, in a May 20th, 2014 letter from the DEP Natural and Historic Resources Historic Preservation Office, Daniel Sanders, to then HP Chairman Art Rubel, it is indicated that the house is individually eligible for listing in the New Jersey and National Registers of Historic Places. There is no requirement to take any next steps, and the county did not direct the village to take any steps regarding the historic registry of the house. As regards the historic preservation of the property, the DEP Historic Preservation Office did not opine on this at all. Ms. Hone's statement at the hearing that it's a known fact, and it's been confirmed that there are artifacts dating back of the Revolutionary War that are within the soil and the parcel, it's already been found, just need to explore, has in fact not been substantiated to the village. So if anyone does have specific proof, we would welcome knowing about this, and we will take all the necessary steps required by law and regulation to handle the situation. Again, the county has not asked us to do anything regarding this currently. There are requirements that will be made of us in various areas as we move forward, and we certainly will be open to investigating this further. A couple of points about next steps in the process of this grant. On May 18th, I'm keeping you awake, aren't I? The Bergen County freeholders will be asked to adopt the Trust Fund Public Advisory recommendations for all of the 2016 open space grants. Once approved, the village will be forwarded a formal contract. So we will get a contract estimated at the end of May that we will need to review, present to council for their approval via a municipal resolution authorizing the grant contract. This contract details the terms and conditions that must be followed by the county as well as the village for this reimbursable grant. Examples of some of the conditions are required documentation through the life of the grant, necessary financial resources to complete the project, county verification of work completed, project schedule, engineering certification, usage consistent with New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection and Green Acres rules and regulations, inspections by the county, accordance with local public contracts law, and compliance with applicable federal, state, and local laws and regulations. That kind of sums up, I know that was lengthy, I apologize, but it sums up the issues that were raised last week. So, I don't know if you want me to stop for questions from you guys right now, or just keep on going with the report.
Keep going then.
Okay. Meet the manager is May 14th, 9 to noon. Meet the mayor has been switched to May 21st, 9 to noon. As far as events go, I think Cynthia mentioned the Conservancy plant sale, May 7th at Memorial Park, 10 to 3. May 11th will be the dog rabies clinic at the recycling center, 6 to 7 p.m. May 12th, Touch a Truck, Van Ness Square, 9 to 2. The rain date, I want to just point this out, the rain date for this is September 22nd, not May 13th as printed in the calendar. May 12th, Ridgewood Sales Days, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 12th, 13th, and 14th. May 12th, Hobbyist Photo Show at the Stable, 5 to 7. And May 14th, as Gary mentioned, Project Pride Day, 9:30 at Van Ness Square. And that's it.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate all the work you did just clarifying everything on Shedler. Appreciate it. Susan.
Okay, thank you. So as I indicated earlier, last night the planning board did meet, and we continue our work on the reexamination of the master plan and development regulations, and we have a list of 118 action items that we need to address. There are about 10 that are urgent, some that are easy, and some that are just not even classified. And the planning board really worked hard to make a determination that some of these are actually just housekeeping items that can be easily addressed right here at the council level through just either deleting certain ordinances that conflict with others or just cleaning up some language. So we'll be sending those forward to the village council for review and to address here, and others will require more in-depth study and further meetings at the planning board level. The other item I have from the planning board, and I didn't add a report at our last meeting for I believe it was the April 19th meeting. Sorry, I'm losing my voice tonight. But there was an article evidently in the, I guess, the Bergen Record pertaining to some development properties along the Route 17 corridor on the northbound side, just actually north of the Shedler property. And this particular article caused quite the upset with some residents, and likely because of somehow how it was written. So I just wanted to offer clarification. It would have been in my previous report, but I had missed that meeting and wanted to have the opportunity to review some details. So as far as the properties that were identified as being pursued by a developer or having been subject of a zoning change, none of that has actually happened, and so any misunderstanding with the article is going to be hopefully cleared up now. So the planning board actually is required by law to prepare and submit a housing element plan. Included in the preliminary discussions of that plan were several acres along that Route 17 corridor and West Saddle River Road. The details include actually low-density townhouses or some type of housing, and along with that is the required % set aside for affordable housing. I have to say that the planning board throughout this process has been diligent in all of their efforts to protect every neighborhood and to actually ensure that we enhance the neighborhood rather than take away or cause it to have a detrimental effect. And it actually wasn't only those properties that were identified, as the mayor was participating in those conversations as well. There were a number of properties throughout the village that were contemplated being included in the housing plan element. So just for the record, there actually has been no public hearing, as may have been inferred in the article, and there was no approval of anything at this point. The only approval that occurred at the last meeting was the approval for Blaze, our village planner, to continue his work on this effort. So any public hearing that actually would happen would require proper public notice. Public hearing would require proper public notice as required by law. And the public hearing, in all likelihood, will be scheduled, I was about to say for mid-May, but we're actually in mid-May, so probably the latter part of May, almost in the mid-May. In any event, so that also would be, the public hearing is going to be scheduled pursuant to a judge's order requiring the planning board to submit by the June 30th deadline. So again, any zoning change that would occur at that point would then have to come back to this council after, if it is in fact approved by the planning board, would then have to come back to this council again for introduction and another public hearing. So the reporter's reference to a developer looking at the property suggests presumably some future development that may or may not happen, but there's no developers involved, there's been no approval of this, and that's where we're at right now. So there's just nothing happening there right now other than the inclusion in our housing plan element. And that's it. That's my report. Thank you. Sorry about the voice.
Albert.
Thank you. None of the committees to which I'm liaison met since the last meeting. I did, however, I'll say this at the risk of stealing the mayor's thunder, but he really deserves to speak about it because he participated in it more actively than I did, attend the Holocaust Memorial Service in Ridgewood at synagogue Sunday evening. And once again, it was just outstanding. It is a service that is it is so moving, so inspiring. I won't describe it because I can't do justice to it. I can say, however, that one of the speakers, the featured speaker, was a woman, Dr. Auerbach, who, when she was 3 years old, witnessed Kristallnacht and what happened to her parents and her home and everything she knew in her world at that point. And then she grew up for the next 10 years, spending most of those years in concentration camp and ultimately losing relatives and very close relatives and classmates and so on. Ultimately survived and found her way to the United States. One of the last of the survivors who has active recollection, and it was a privilege. It was truly a privilege to hear this woman speak, and I feel privileged to be in her presence, and I can only say that if you have the opportunity to attend it next year, I have been moved every single time I've attended it. I can't say this time more than last time because they have all been just superlative, and the motto is never forget. And by attending and hearing these stories from people who were actually there, you will never forget. So maybe it wasn't a liaison meeting, but it was one of the most memorable things I've done since I'm on this council. It was truly a great evening, Mayor.
Thanks, Albert. Gwen.
Well, thanks for sharing that, Albert. I missed a Fields Committee meeting that was this morning, but I have the minutes, so I guess I'll report. There was discussion of Maple Park turf field. They had the density checked. It's called GMAX testing. And the reason for that is that the field is about 12 years old and it's been refurbished right after Sandy, but the likelihood is that it's going to need to be replaced or seriously repaired sometime in the next couple years. This GMAX testing tells you what the allowable limits are for playing, and the score that the field received was slightly above the unacceptable level of 200. So Tim Cronin said they're going to do one more test on it, but then there's no action items listed. It's just a study. Also, they discussed a CRAB meeting that's going to be on May 11th. A presentation, CRAB is Community Resource Advisory Board. Is that right? Community Relations, sorry. Yeah, Community Relations Advisory Board, and they are having a presentation called Creating a Culture of Healthy Competition, which is a great topic for any town. And I also want to say, one of the reasons why we enrolled our kids and children was to teach them healthy competition. So I'm sure that this is going to receive a lot of people who are frustrated with the way sports is sometimes de-escalates when they reach conflict, and some people who will say it's just a good part of growing up and hopefully they're coached well. But I think it'd be a great presentation if you're interested. It's in Village Hall on Wednesday, May 11th. Then there was some discussion about the field's general upkeep in Ridgewood and what a challenge it is because their fields are overused and there is absolutely no opportunity to rest a field and let them grow to the point where they're robust enough to receive that much exercise. But they didn't come up with any solutions. That's that one. May 6th is Older Americans Month, acknowledging the contributions of older adults to our nation to promote activities and programs which enhance inclusion of seniors and health of senior citizens. The U.S. Department of Health Administration on Aging was designated to carry out the provisions of the Older Americans Act of 1965, and it is giving out grant money to provide supportive services for individuals over the age of 60. So I wanted to read a proclamation next week and just do everything we can to increase the awareness of our growing aging population, which is right now around 14 to 18%, depending on what municipality you're in. It's expected to increase to 22% in the next 22 years, 22% of our population. And lastly, but I'm hosting another Let's Stay Acquainted lunches for any senior that would like to attend who's a resident of Ridgewood. There's no speaker, there's no agenda, it's just a social. We're going to enjoy flower arranging, fellowship, and fun, and play board games. I have Scrabble, dominoes, Ouija, and categories. So it's just going to be 2 hours of fun tomorrow in the community center from 12 to 2, and a free lunch. And it's Cinco de Mayo, so we're going to eat some Mexican food. That's it.
Great, thank you. Mike?
I don't have anything this week. Thank you.
And just two quick things. One is just following what Albert was saying about the Holocaust Memorial Service. It's put on by the Interfaith Clergy Council, and it is extraordinary because of the substance of it, because of the music, because of the speakers, because of the fact that the clergy from all houses of worship come together and put on this incredible program for our community. And speaking of the Interfaith Clergy Council, one of the things I started when I was a councilman, probably about 6 years ago, is I started working very closely with the clergy and attending their monthly meetings and working closely with them. John Ward as well as Jackie Lucky also participate. It's something we talked about this week at their monthly meeting. We'd like to continue with the next council, and they're going to be approaching the new head of or coordinator of the Interfaith Clergy Council will be Nolan Palsma, and he's going to be reaching out to the next council to sort of continue that, because the connection with the council, connection with the police department, they're also going to reach out to the Board of Ed, really just to sort of bring people together on a monthly basis and do some programming. So I think it's a good thing to continue. So with that, we will go back to public comments. Anyone's welcome to step up. Good evening.
Diane Palacios, 342 North Fandine. Yeah, I was watching again the council meeting, and I heard is that Mr. Kilman and Mr. Sullivan who spoke about the signs. Yeah, I was struck by when he used Princeton as an example to follow. It just, by reason of association, when Paul Gould and other speakers, Paul Gould, who was the head of the Concerned Residents of Ridgewood, spoke about how the Princeton Hospital worked with the residents, and then the Princeton Medical Center moved away from a residential area. And it was mentioned, Princeton did this, Princeton moved away. And nobody cared, but when it comes to the sign, Princeton did it. But when it came to the hospital, everybody ignored it. And I said, I thought to myself, Princeton is so fancy. Why don't we copy them in that respect? And everyone ignored that. But now, I want to talk about the signage and then something else. If the signage is indeed in good taste, I certainly would allow it. I certainly don't want to take away from businesses in these times when people are buying things online and so on. We have the competition of them all. But only if it's really in really good taste and kind of like not too in your face, like not too Times Square. Because I don't want, Ridgewood is turning into Times Square. That's a fact. And I will say this on that topic. I'm filled in my older age with gratitude, which I never thought I would. People say you're supposed to be gracious. I really am filled with gratitude for all the years that I had Ridgewood as a quiet, villagey, small-town, charming place, because it is changing. When I guess you're going to put so-called lights with good taste on Van Nest, I always marveled that there weren't any lights, that there was indeed a demarcation between day and night, which there should be. Day is the time to wake up and do things, night is the time to rest. And anyway, then I wanted to say something else about the candy. I happen to have a cousin who's a famous food historian. Her name is Barbara Haber. She wrote a book. I'm not going to mention the name of the book. But anyway, she was one of the judges at last Tuesday's James Beard Award in journalism. That was in New York City. And they recommended various books. That one in 2015 in cookery. And anyway, I know her very well. She lives in Massachusetts, but she comes down, and we're close cousins from way back 100 years ago. Anyway, what foodies and experts in food are recommending now is that you shop locally and you plant your own food. Vegetable gardens, it's just getting real big. I won't go into it, but in Fairlawn, there's something called growing food on the curb. I'm getting off the topic. And they're actually doing that, and people can pick. Anyway, the point that I want to make is that I appreciate Kilwins. Kilwins is a chain store. There's a store in Sarasota, Florida, because I've been to that store in Sarasota, Florida. But we have a local candy, a New Jersey candy. It's made in Morristown. It's called Anjou, E-N-J-O-U, and it's sold in King's Supermarket in pretty boxes and bags, all kinds of candy. It's made in Morristown. So if you're going to buy your mother candy, buy the New Jersey candy. That's what we have to do. It's made in New Jersey with New Jersey products and New Jersey merchants. So please, that's what the food experts are telling you to do, and it's a beautiful idea. And I'm going to buy my daughter-in-law, who's a new mother, a healthy cookbook that would just won an award, and some Anjou candy.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Good evening. Ann Loving, 342 South Irving Street. A couple things. Regarding the A-frame signs, I think they're a great idea, and I'm really glad you're going to suspend that ordinance. I just was hoping that you could make a point of letting all shop owners know, not just members of the chamber, because there's plenty of shop owners that are not members of the chamber, so I don't know what the method would be for doing that, but I think you should make sure they all know about it. The second thing I wanted to ask about, I guess you've received some sort of brochure, or maybe it's coming out to all of us in the mail about Graydon. Still wondering about whether the last week of August is going to be like last year, where the pool is closed for a whole week and then reopens Labor Day. And then the third thing is, last week I asked you to consider, I don't know, maybe suspending the ordinance or changing the ordinance about dogs in parks. Somebody mentioned, the village manager tonight mentioned something about somebody walking a dog at Habernickel. I definitely think dogs should be allowed in parks. I think that is an ordinance that ought to be suspended or changed, and I look forward to maybe the new council will do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to answer Graydon for a second, I think I did go through the days and the hours earlier. I might have gone through it very quickly, but this is available. Tim, where is this? This is available at the stable. Okay, so this is the. Excuse me. Yeah, no. From August, I said from August 4th, 15th through Labor Day, which would include that week. Weekdays 12 to 7:30, weekends, holidays 10 to 7:30. So yeah. Sorry if I said that too quickly, but these are available.
Great, thank you.
Sorry.
Jacqueline, Home 30 Carriage Lane. I'm here to respond to the village manager's report in regards to Shedler. I have the minutes that were referenced right in front of me, and I'd like to read from it because there's a major discrepancy. Cynthia, she referred to Elaine Gold and Cynthia Forrester. Elaine is the administrator of the Bergen County Historic Preservation, and Cynthia is the director. Ms. Gold, in her letter, I'm just going to pull it up, in the minutes, refers to the historic eligibility of Shedler. One second, I'm sorry. So with the certificate of eligibility, basically, it's the state saying, yes, it's historic, yes, there's merit, yes, there's value, but you actually have to apply for the full process for really any level of legal protection. Why wasn't that done? She goes on to say, there was a little bit of issues. There was no signature from the village to actually allow the grant and the protection to be awarded. That's very different. It's a play of words what's being done here. We already know that there's a historic element. I was also, numerous occasions, almost at every single meeting, I have stood here and I have invited each and every one of you to review everything with me. Tonight, Roberta says, if anyone has any information. I've repeatedly given information. Not only have I given information, but I've invited all of you. I actually filed a notice of complaint regarding all this information, to which my complaint was given directly to Roberta, and on October 7th, 2015, Roberta sent me an email in regard to that, saying, I find your email to be threatening, highly inaccurate and defamatory. As such, I will not respond to it. No one here can say that they didn't know what was going on. In regards to the artifacts in the parcel, within the soil, Councilman Seaton wrote an article about it in detail in 2010. Everybody knows about it. If the house is historical and the house came after the land, common sense will tell you, in addition to everything else that's been proven, that there is historical value not only to the house but also to the parcel. In regards to wildlife, numerous reports have also been given to this council, to the Historic Preservation. Mayor Aronson, you stood in front of the Historic Preservation at that table, promised that you would sit down with me. I have since sent you 8 emails asking you to keep your word, to meet with me, and nobody will come forward and look at this information. So Roberta's comment about if anyone has this information, what do? The report itself, the minutes clearly say, the mayor is here, he is listening, so he is on notice. If that's not a notice, then I don't know what else is a notice. What do we have to do here for this council, for this administration, for this village to acknowledge something that is blatantly in your face? It's frustrating. At this point, we can all sit here and keep looking back and forth at one another, but what is going to be done? Are we on the path to destroy American history and ignore it for whatever reason? I have no idea. The proof is there. I've invited all of you to sit with me. What is it going to take? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments?
Can I just add one more last thing?
Sure.
If the minutes are going to be referenced and it's going to be made to appear that what I said was incorrect, could they be posted online like everything else is posted?
We'll take that under advisement. And I don't think we've posted other people's minutes before, but we'll
Yes, you
consider
have.
it. Okay, we'll consider it. Thank you. Any other comments?
I just
Can we wait to the end,
Okay, I'm
please?
sorry. That's fine. Thanks.
Good evening, Boyd Loving, 342 South Irving Street. As I did last week, I would again like to support Mr. Gary Cirillo's comments regarding the signs, the election signs, campaign signs. I do think something needs to be done either by this council or the next council concerning getting the signs under control. I'm not sure whether I necessarily agree with the specific plan that Mr. Cirillo proposed about within 15 feet of the curb line, but I do think that at least in the central business district, they are somewhat out of control. Now, with all due respect to Mr. Griffiths, I don't have any gardening skills, but I think that Mr. Griffiths is concerning himself with just a May election. We have to remember that there are more than one election and more than one campaign that happened during the course of the year. In fact, on June 21st, I think there may be yet another election, and there may be signs associated with people who have an opinion one way or another with regard to the referendum. So definitely by June, there should be some growing taking place. And as Mr. Seaton and I both discussed last week, we've got a major election coming up in November. It's going to be hotly contested. I anticipate that there are going to be signs, not necessarily on people's lawns, because some people might not like to really indicate whether they are for Ms. Clinton or for Mr. Trump, but certainly in public places, people would start to put signs everywhere they possibly can. So I really think that it's imperative that some sort of local ordinance be established as quickly as possible. Perhaps we can't get it here by June 21st, but we should definitely have it here by November. Otherwise, the CBD is just going to be plastered with signs all over the place. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other public comments? All right. Roberta, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, I just want to say a couple of things. I don't think I mentioned anybody named Cynthia in my comments, so I just wanted to say that relative to the House. What Ms. Kernan-Gold was talking about was she's opining on a grant that was for the House, not the grant that we are dealing with in the hearing. As a result of the hearing, we were not requested to do anything relative to the House, relative to the registry of the House, or any of that. As far as you being put on notice, Mr. Funabashi did say, the mayor is here, he's heard it. That was referring to the blackout period for the eagle heron foraging or nesting. And that was in direct, it was a discussion that was being had at the time, apparently from the minutes. We didn't even deal with that today because that nesting period, even though there's no nesting obvious there, ends somewhere in July, and we're not even intending on doing anything with cleanup at that point because we have all these other things to do. Actually, that's what you were put on notice for, and you didn't really have to do anything about it. This is all I wanted to say.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
So just as can I ask a quick question? So just as, we have the page on the website, one is for the garage, one is for the Shetler property. Those minutes are publicly available, so is there any reason that we wouldn't put it on? I mean, I would just, it seems to me that it's...
No, there's no reason at all.
Yeah, I just, if we can throw it up there in a
As a
PDF.
matter of fact, the county was saying how helpful they found the whole, and they asked people to go to the Shetler website on the Village of Ridgewood website because it's very helpful. And they do like it. They said that
Yeah,
to me
so I just
today.
think as another piece of information, it's probably a great idea to put it up there and,
It's not a problem.
kind of, it's in the context of just the process and that information.
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Resolution to go into closed session, please.
I don't
Are you
need
done?
I was just going to say I don't need,
Oh, I'm sorry.
I asked for closed session, but the issue has gone away.
Okay.
Oh.
All right. Motion to
Are you
adjourn.
happy?
So moved. Excellent.
Second.
I was going home anyway.
Who seconded? Who moved? I'm sorry, okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you.
Good night, everybody.